Fears of a tsunami after an 8.8 magnitude earthquake in Russia have triggered evacuations across Russia, Japan, and Hawaii. Hongkongers shrug off tsunami threat, sticking to their Japan travel plan. And players of Premier League club Arsenal make a grand appearance, attending a pre-match training session before tomorrow's clash against Tottenham Hotspur. Good evening, you're watching Cable News on FNBI. A powerful 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the far eastern coast of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula this morning, triggering widespread tsunami warnings across the Pacific, reaching as far as the United States, New Zealand, and Japan. Tsunami waves up to 1.3 meters have hit northern Japan. Nearly 2 million coastal residents have been evacuated to safety, and railway and air services have been suspended. Tsunami warnings have been lowered to advisories in the evening, but residents are urged to maintain cautious. Shurin tells us more.
Strong tsunami waves battered Japan's Pacific coast from Hokkaido to Wakayama following the massive earthquake off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Waves measuring up to 1.3 meters were recorded in the northern Japan's Kuji port in Iwate Prefecture, while a 50-centimeter tsunami was recorded in eastern Miyagi Prefecture. Other regions including Tohoku, Kanto, Nemuro, Tokachi, and Hamanaka also recorded high waves. Warning sirens echoed through coastal cities as authorities urgently called for the evacuation of nearly 2 million residents. In Hokkaido, residents sought safety on rooftops and higher ground after the Japan Meteorological Agency warned of potential tsunami waves reaching up to 3 meters above tide level, with impacts expected to persist throughout the day. Officials urged residents to remain evacuated and stay on high ground until all alerts are lifted. The tsunami warnings disrupted transportation across the region. East Japan Railway Company and Central Japan Railway Company suspended train services in coastal areas, while JR Hokkaido halted operations on its Hidaka and Senmo lines. Sendai Airport closed its runways, forcing flights to be rerouted or cancelled. At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, operators halted the release of treated radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean as a precaution and evacuated workers from the site, adding that no abnormality had been observed so far. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
The observatory said the tsunami waves generated by the earthquake should have reached Hong Kong by now, but the waves were too low to be observed. Meanwhile, tsunami warnings did not hit pause on Hong Kong travelers' schedules, as many boarded their planes to Japan as planned. Cheryl Yun again reports.
Early birds crowded check-in counters, awaiting their flights to Japan, a top travel spot for many Hong Kong residents. Most tourists brushed aside concerns over tsunamis or earthquakes.
日本都係一個地震嘅一個比較頻密嘅一個地區嚟嘅。
One woman noted that she had watched educational videos on how to protect herself during earthquakes or other natural disasters and felt mentally prepared, knowing Japan is one of the world's most earthquake-prone countries. Flights to Sendai Airport were rerouted to Tokyo due to the closure, but flights to other parts of Japan, including Tokyo, Osaka, and Okinawa, departed as usual. EGL Tours Executive Director Steve Hoon assured travelers that Japan remains safe, provided they avoid shorelines, and confirmed that the 30 tours currently traveling in Japan are safe. Meanwhile, the city's weather forecaster had alerted Hong Kongers to brace for a minor impact, with tide levels expected to rise by 0.1 meters.
On record, similar case happened in 1952. At that time, a magnitude 9 earthquake occurred in Kamchatka, triggering minor tsunami wave in Hong Kong of 0.15 meters.
Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
In Russia, the quake has triggered tsunami waves of 3 to 4 meters high at Kamchatka Peninsula, the epicenter of the quake. Dozens of strong aftershocks have been recorded. Meanwhile, areas along the Pacific coast are also feeling the impact of the tsunami. Bess Leung reports.
Violent shaking was captured on surveillance cameras in Kamchatka homes, sending items crashing to the floor. The tremor caused damage to buildings. Russian media reported several people sought medical attention for minor injuries. The quake's force generated dangerous tsunamis. Waves exceeding 5 meters slammed into several Kurils on the Russian-administered Kuril Islands north of Japan's Hokkaido, sweeping away an entire factory building and forcing over 2,000 residents to evacuate. Parts of Kamchatka itself saw waves of 3 to 4 meters, prompting firefighters to evacuate coastal areas. Sakhalin Island reported power outages due to grid damage. The United States Geological Survey has revised the strength of the quake to a magnitude of 8.8 after it was initially reported at 8.0 and later revised upwards to 8.7. Multiple aftershocks as strong as magnitude 6.9 have been recorded. The Russian Academy of Sciences said the quake was the strongest recorded for the peninsula since 1952. The tremor struck at 7:30 a.m. Hong Kong time, centered just 136 kilometers southeast of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky at a shallow depth of 19 kilometers. The Pacific threat extended far beyond Russia. The U.S. issued tsunami alerts for Hawaii and warnings or advisories for the west coast of Alaska, California, Canada, Guam, and across to the Philippines, Taiwan, and both North and South Korea. In Hawaii, residents faced bumper-to-bumper traffic as they evacuated coastal zones under official orders. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center later reported waves of 1 to 1.2 meters impacting the Hawaiian Islands, leading the Coast Guard to order boats out of harbors. Authorities continue to assess the full extent of the damage and monitor ongoing tsunami risks across the Pacific Basin. Bess Leung, Cable News.
Back to Hong Kong. In the latest developments of the power outage at To Kwong Wan's Yifeng Mansions, some desperate residents still have not had their power supply fully restored after repair works stepped into the 5th day. Personnel from CLP Power and the Electrical and Mechanical Services Department continue to inspect the temporary power supply system. From noon to 8 p.m., power was cut off in Blocks A and C to facilitate reinforcement work and investigate units that were suspected of electrical leaks. This resident from Block C said, after 2 nights and 3 days, he finally got through this difficult period without electricity. A resident of Block A said the corridor on the 3rd floor has power, but her unit does not. This man slammed the property management company, saying the management fees had been raised from $300 to $500, but the company has not fulfilled its duties properly. Speaking to iCable News, lawmaker Terry Lee pointing out that the owners' corporations of decade-old buildings lack professional knowledge regarding repairs. She suggested that the government and the Urban Renewal Authority provide professional technical guidance to assist in these matters. Residents are urged to provide assistance in locating a missing man who went kayaking in Sai Kung on July 27th. Yan Gan, aged 44, stands 1.7 meters tall, weighs 75 kilograms, and has a medium build. He was last seen at Pak Lat Wan around noon on Sunday, the same day the police received a report, wearing a dark-colored swimming suit with an orange life jacket and a blue cap. The man reportedly rented a kayak in Pak Lat Wan, heading to Po Pin Chau, but had not returned the boat by sunset, prompting staff from the kayak rental company to alert the authorities. Despite several days of searches conducted by rescuers and helicopters around Pek Lat Wan and Po Pin Chau, no trace of Yan has been found. Following 2 days of intensive talks, China and the US have agreed in principle to extend the fragile 90-day tariff pause set to expire on August 12th. The truce maintains US tariffs on Chinese goods at 30% and China's retaliatory duties at 10% levels set during a breakthrough agreement in May. Bess Leung reports.
Vice Premier He Lifeng and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent co-led the 2-day negotiations, which both sides described as candid, in-depth, and constructive. The truce maintains current tariff levels, 10% on U.S. imports and 30% on Chinese goods, first agreed upon in May during talks in Geneva. Bessent cautioned that final approval rests with President Donald Trump, who will decide today whether to endorse the extension. He also stressed that the U.S. doesn't seek decoupling with China.
We don't want to decouple. We just need to de-risk with certain strategic industries, whether it's the rare earths, semiconductors, medicines, and we talked about what we could do together to get into balance.
Bessent noted Beijing's compliance with earlier commitments to expedite shipments of rare earth magnets, a critical concession for U.S. tech and defense industries. He also challenged China over its global capacity overhang, purchases of 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil, and $15 billion in dual-use technology sales to Russia. Meanwhile, Vice Premier He called for mutual respect and win-win results, emphasizing that China firmly rejects linking trade to geopolitical issues such as its energy partnerships. However, the discussions sidestepped potential U.S. leader visits to Beijing, TikTok's ownership, and broader technology curbs. Bess Leung, Cable News.
Banking giant HSBC reported lower than expected profits in the second quarter. The bank also announced plans to repurchase stock of up to $3 billion. Profit before tax decreased by $2.6 billion to $6.3 billion in the second quarter, representing a 29% drop compared with the same period last year. The figure fell short of market expectations of nearly $7 billion. The decrease was mainly attributed to the $2.1 billion impairment on its stake in Bank of Communications. The second quarter's interim dividend remains at $0.10 per share. The second quarter also included expected credit losses of $1.1 billion, roughly $700 million higher than a year earlier, largely due to the impact of Hong Kong's commercial real estate sector. Meanwhile, the UK lender plans to initiate a new round of stock buybacks of up to $3 billion, expected to be completed before the next quarter earnings announcement. Now let's take a look at the stock markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day down 347 points. Top ATIC stocks of the day. Checker Fund was down 36 cents. Tencent was down $6. Xiaomi was down 55 cents. Meituan was down $1.20. Premier League club Arsenal met with Hong Kong fans before clashing against Tottenham Hotspur in the rare North London derby outside England on Thursday. Midfielder Declan Rice pledged the team will give it all in tomorrow night's match.
Excitement, obviously the first derby, like you said, outside of London, and it's a massive fixture for us. So we want to win, because the last few games against Tottenham we've won, and we want to keep that going. So, yeah.
Meanwhile, newly signed Victor Gyökeres also made appearance at an open training section at the Kai Tak Stadium. The Gunners have just played 2 warm-up matches in Singapore, defeating AC Milan 1-0 and Newcastle 3-2. The new Premier League season will kick off in mid-August, with the Gunners facing Manchester United in their first away game. Onto the weather now. Mainly cloudy with occasional showers and a few squally thunderstorms. Showers will be heavier at first tomorrow. Bright periods in the afternoon. Temperatures will range between 27 and 31 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our news tonight. I'm Evelyn Bai. Thanks for watching and good night.